I'm Sharon Kindred, host of Lifestyles Today in Brevard. You never want it to happen, a medical emergency that would put a loved one in ICU, but it did happen recently to one local family. Let's hear their story and then find out what vital and cutting-edge technology is taking place in this building.
When the heart rate had dropped and they were rubbing her stomach, had already brought two other nurses in their scrubs. At that point, I knew that she was going in for an emergency C-section. They said that the baby's cord had partially wrapped around his neck, but they got him out, and it was maybe a minute and a half, and then he started crying, so that's when I knew that everything with him was going to be okay.
I remember waking up in recovery and asking how Connor was, and then again I started feeling lightheaded and dizzy. I could feel stuff just gushing out of me.
She still would not stop bleeding, so they rushed her down for emergency surgery.
I had what was called DIC, a clotting disorder.
They had to put a main line into her neck because they couldn't get her intravenously enough blood quick enough, and a total of 14 units of blood. It was potentially life-threatening. She could have bled to death if they couldn't have controlled the bleeding.
The next morning when I woke up in the ICU, the nurse explained to me what the video camera was for and how the doctor had been viewing me remotely all night, monitoring my condition, letting them know how much more blood to give me and plasma and platelets.
It made me feel very comfortable because I couldn't stay with her all night, that someone would be there to watch her.
Knowing that the EICU provided extra care and special attention made me feel better about the care I was getting, and I know that my family were also grateful for the extra attention I was getting.
That was a very compelling video. Can you tell us more about this cutting-edge technology?
Sure. We're now standing inside the core, which is the clinical operations room for VitalWatch. VitalWatch is the program name for the EICU at Health First. We implemented this technology in June 2004. There's another program in South Florida. Miami Baptist is the second. There's now one in Georgia. So we were the first in the Southeast, meaning Alabama, Georgia, Florida, 9th in the country. There's now pushing 50 EICU programs in the country. The idea behind an EICU is that you can leverage what are becoming scarce resources across a large area, actually any distance you can imagine, over multiple patients at a time. For instance, from this room, we can monitor 78 ICU beds between Cape Canaveral, Holmes Regional Medical Center, and Palm Bay Hospital. The intensivist, or the specialist in critical care medicine, is here from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then we have a critical care nurse who's in the operations room from 24/7. When we start a shift here as an intensivist, the first thing we do is deal with any dangling issues. So I identify the sickest individuals, and I usually put their telemetry or their vital signs, active vital signs that are streaming here, front and center, and make myself familiar with them. And of 62 patients, there's usually about 10 that are particularly sick. Then I'll address any outstanding issues, any calls that have come in, etc., and I'll go through their histories, their medications, ventilator settings, and any other support devices, and make myself familiar with them using our software here that drives this system called eCare Manager. If there are pertinent images, X-rays, and so forth, I'll pull up their X-rays and look to see that all the support equipment is in place, etc. I will also set my smart alerts, or these physiologic alerts, to focus more on the sicker individuals, while the nurses are monitoring all of them throughout the 24-hour period. And then finally, I'll probably camera into the sickest individuals and just get an idea of who they are, what they look like, what type of support equipment they have at the bedside, and then go from there. Dr. Schaefer? So it's not unusual on a night shift over 8 hours to get 70 to 80 calls, and for me to write 100 orders, 80 to 100 orders. And notes and orders are written right here. I put my orders in, or whatever patients need, and it gets printed right to the intensive care unit. It goes right to their chart. It becomes a permanent part of their medical record. Same thing with the notes, which just reflect what I did, why I chose to do that, so that the doctors on site can understand what I was doing in the middle of the night.
How do doctors and nurses feel about this program? What are you hearing from them?
The attitude and talk among the providers at the bedside has evolved, for sure. When we first launched this program, there was a lot of skepticism, paranoia, resistance, like any new IT initiative. Physicians don't want to have uninvited guests meddling with their patients, and nurses don't want more work added to their day, which basically we did both things. So, however, we moved forward in a spirit of service to the healthcare providers at the bedside and tried to sell this program not as a big brother, but as a helper, as a safety net. And I can honestly say and proudly say that we're coming up on our 5th year anniversary. There is tremendous support. There are nurses who have stated verbatim, I wouldn't work anywhere there wasn't an EICU, because we provide such tremendous awake support to their critically ill patients. And the physicians have come to appreciate it because they don't, those 70 calls I mentioned earlier are not going out to them. And who better to make clinical judgments than somebody who's awake with data? And at the same time, we don't diss the fact that there's nobody better to make decisions than the clinician that knows the patient. So we don't take ourselves too seriously. We know our limits, and we do what we can to make the healthcare better. But by and large, the support has been tremendous. It's a well respected program, and has done good service for both the patients and the caretakers at the bedside.
How does the legal system look at this technology?
When we first launched this, we almost failed because many of the physicians who were going to work here had malpractice underwriters that had no understanding and quite honestly viewed this as a huge exposure, because now you're taking a doctor and putting them in contact with 100 patients, each of whom have 5 to 6 doctors on the case. So the risk exposure looks tremendous, but what has been borne out around the country, and these systems have now cared for well over 1 million patients, is a total decline in litigation in the ICU environment. To my knowledge, there's not been a single settlement brought before a remote intensivist or an EICU physician since this whole program was launched in America in 1998.
And what do you feel has been the biggest contribution that VitalWatch has given to the community and to the patients it has served?
I can unequivocally say that because of this program, there have been lives saved. Because of this program, the care has been better. After personally being a part of this program and contributing to this program, I can honestly say I would not want to be critically ill in a hospital without it. And that's based on my knowledge of what goes on in a hospital. But one of the greatest spin-offs of a program like this that's successful is this beat-to-death concept we talk about in healthcare change today, and that is the cultural impact. When a hospital system commits this much resources to this type of care, and people come together to make it happen, because you have to. This isn't just a product you buy and plug in and things are working. it requires tremendous cooperation from all major stakeholders. It breeds a new culture of cooperation. It raises the bar on care in the intensive care unit, and as a result, you've basically built an engine of care that is constantly under improvement. So, and that's a powerful tool, and one in which, if you're a patient, you want to be put into. So I think that's probably one of the biggest byproducts, quality byproducts of this program.
Well, thank you so much for letting us come in here today and talk to you.
Thank you.
From saving human lives to a pet's life, our next video is going to show us CPR for animals.
What I'm going to demonstrate now is CPR for an animal, which is just as important as if you have a young child in your home. You should know the basic safeties of CPR, which can be learned at your local Red Cross. You would approach the dog. You notice that the dog's not breathing. It has no respiration or pulse by checking for a pulse. You would make sure the dog is laying on its side. Because you're alone, you would be facing the dog from this direction. You would make sure that the head is to the side. You would open the mouth, clear out any obstruction, close the mouth with the tongue straight, and blow. Look for respiration from the dog. If you don't see any air moving, you would start CPR. CPR for a dog by yourself would constitute putting the elbow here, the hand placement here, and a single person would be 1 breath, 5 compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would do this for 2 to 3 minutes, and then you would check to see if you have a pulse, or if you see the chest moving, you can feel for the heart to see if there's the heart is beating again, and you would continue with this for 20 minutes or until you can get the dog to the vet for emergency service as soon as possible. You would feel for a pulse. You can check back on the back inside of the leg, and you can also do it up here on the front. What you want to do is practice on your own pet at home, looking for the pulse. These are things that you should already know and be able to locate on your own animal at home before an emergency situation takes place. And if you take the class, you'll find out what the pulse rates and normal respirations are for an animal. All that documentation is provided and given to you in a book and a DVD. You notice that your cat has cut its paw with a piece of glass. The pad is bleeding. What you would do is apply direct pressure. If the bleeding continues and comes through the pad, you would continue to put another pad over the other one without removing it. You would then apply a gauze wrap over the bleed and the pad, and then safely pick up your animal and transport to the vet for further care. Important tips to know about cats, or any animal for that matter, is the safety feature of protecting yourself as well as the animal. A cat injured will scratch or bite, so the best way to approach a cat may be from the back with a towel, where you can wrap the animal, leaving the extremity that is damaged or injured out. As you protect yourself, and then you're able to wrap the injured extremity, protecting the animal and yourself.
Now we're going to meet some students from Indialantic Elementary School. They are making their school a bit more colorful. Let's take a look.
This area had been sitting vacant for 4 or 5 years now, and just kind of has been in the back of my mind that I wanted to have a garden here. So talked with Mrs. Whitner and the art teacher who wanted to make a rainbow garden, and we kind of incorporated our ideas, made a rainbow garden and a vegetable garden. So each box represents a color of the rainbow, and each box has vegetables planted that will be harvested and donated to Daily Bread for their use when they cook for the homeless. Each box is owned by a 4th grade class.
I really enjoyed making the garden, and I think it's really helpful in nature. And probably one of the most backbreaking work is when they gave us a big mound of dirt and we had to take shovels and dig it and put it in all the boxes, and it took a long time to clean up. And so I really like how we get to do vegetables because we get to taste them, and I tried a bean I've never had before, and I really like it.
Susie has something a little different for us today on our Adopt a Pet segment. Let's see who needs a forever home this week.
Hi, I'm Susie Fleming Leonard, and I have with me Teresa Clifton with the Central Brevard Humane Society. And under wraps we have, there she is.
It's Trixie.
Trixie the ferret.
Say hi, Trixie.
Teresa, tell us about Trixie. She is so sweet.
She is a cuddler, and she is called Trixie because she's a trickster. Trixie is about 2 years old, and she came to the shelter because her owners bought her from a pet store, did not realize that Trixie is like a cat, requires all the attention and care that a cat does, thought that it was just an animal she could just, keep in a cage and throw food in. Then the landlord wouldn't let them keep Trixie, so they brought Trixie to us, and she is a spunky little girl.
She is very energetic, isn't she? I'm going to see
Yes,
if she'll
she
let me
is.
hold her for a minute. Hi, Trixie. Hi, Trixie. Oh, there we go. Oh, uh-oh. She's going over.
She's going over. She's very curious. Ferrets like to play like a cat. The toys that you give them, they like to sleep in hammocks, and they like to hide under things. And with Trixie, we put her under the blanket, and then she will.
And we'll see where she'll
poke
out.
around
There she
and come
is.
out.
She peeks out.
People also assume that because they have a natural musk scent, you want to give ferrets a bath a lot, and you should not do that. The more you bathe them, the harder their glands work to keep that natural oils on their skin. It's good for their fur.
She keeps getting away from me.
She has a slight musk scent to her. It's not very strong though, and her fur is very, very nice coat, very clean. She's a very happy ferret. She's intelligent. See, she's looking. Is she looking? Look at the camera. There you are.
And you
Say
said
hello.
that ferrets can, I did not realize that ferrets can be litter box trained.
Yes, they are intelligent. They are very much like cats in that regard. They can be litter box trained. They do tricks and things, and they'll play with you. They are curious, so if you have any holes in your house that they could crawl into, they will, because they're very curious and they want to look in every nook and cranny like a cat does.
Can you look at me?
They eat a nice balance of ferret food at your local pet shop, or you can feed them cat food. They eat that as well.
Well, if someone wanted to take Trixie home, or if they wanted to adopt any of the animals that you have at the Humane Society, what should people do?
Trixie is $25 to adopt, and at the Humane Society, you would just come in to the shelter at 1020 Cox Road in Cocoa, and she's there available. She has also had a rabies shot. You want to make sure that they get their rabies shots.
Teresa, thanks again, and thank you, Trixie. You were very patient with us.
That's our show for this week. We're going to close the show with a photo gallery of smiling faces from around Brevard. Have a great week.